Can we quickly confirm speaker order for each team?
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Jerry, we are Acclive GW. We are going first. I'm first speaker and Jerry is second speaker.
Yeah, sorry, for BC Academy, it's first speaker Megan Webster, second speaker Jaden Jung, and we will be going on the pro side, going second. Perfect.
All right, cool. Um, if everyone is ready, I'll begin my first speech on the constructive side, on the negation side. Okay. Judges, ready? All
Yes,
right.
I'm ready. Sorry, I've been having issues in the camera since this morning.
No, no worries. All right. If anyone is anyone not ready? All right, cool. Timer will begin on my first word. We negate resolve. The United States should substantially reduce its military support of Taiwan. Contention 1 is support is China deterrent. Warrant 1, the U.S. stance in Taiwan is key to preventing takeover. According to Observer Research Foundation 23, if the PRC is to be deterred from attempting a forcible takeover of Taiwan, the U.S. needs to maintain a tough political and military stance against reunification by force. The need of the hour is for the U.S. to maintain a steady and tough line. Warrant 2, the Center for Strategic and International Studies 24 states if the United States is to meet Beijing's growing threats to peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait, it must build a strong coalition capable of meaningfully supporting Taiwan. Building such a coalition is key to deterring conflict. The broader and deeper the coalition of stakeholders, the more unmistakable the signal to Beijing that it would pay a significant price for escalating pressure on Taiwan. Impact 1 is the destruction of the semiconductor industry and global GDP. According to First Post 24, a potential invasion of Taiwan can have far-reaching consequences. It would take years to recreate the scale and capabilities of Taiwan's semiconductor industrial base, and any serious impairment of the island's chipmaking operations would severely constrain supply, costing the world around $10 trillion, or about 10% of global GDP. Impact 2 is U.S.-China war. According to Luca Meyer 24, if China invaded Taiwan, the U.S. would enact sanctions and major trade restrictions on China. China would do the same to us, and military actions would follow. Therefore, the two largest economies in the world would be at war. An analysis from global financial firm GTS has estimated a short-term stock market plummet of up to 34% after an invasion. Impact 3 is that war would be catastrophic. According to Cato Institute 22, neither Beijing nor Washington would accept defeat in a limited engagement. Instead, the conflict would expand horizontally to other regions and vertically. It could become the worst catastrophe in the history of warfare, and the consequences of such a conflict would be spread globally. Contention 2 is that it shows U.S. support for democracy. Warrant 1, Taiwan is a strong proponent for democracy. According to Council on Foreign Relations 24, civil liberties from freedom of expression, religion, and press are protected. Freedom House gives Taiwan a global freedom score of 94 out of 100, placing it as the second freest place in Asia behind Japan and the 22nd globally, far ahead of the United States. Warrant 2 is that the U.S. should support democracy. According to U.S. Agency for International Development 19, democracy and development are integrally linked. They are more peaceful, experience higher economic growth, lower poverty rates, protect the environment, provide more clean water, have higher life expectancies, and see more equitable distribution of education. By advancing democratic development across our foreign assistance, we are ensuring that growth and prosperity lift up everyone while protecting human rights and dignity. Warrant 3 is that Taiwan's fate is crucial for democracy. According to Council on Foreign Relations 23, the island's fate will have major implications for U.S. security and prosperity. What happens in the Taiwan Strait will also bear on fundamental questions of international order and the future of democracy, and impact U.S. alliances in the region. A Chinese attack on Taiwan, regardless of its success or whether the United States chose to intervene, would also trigger a global economic depression and shave trillions of dollars off of global economic output. If China were to successfully absorb Taiwan, it would establish a pattern of authoritarian countries using force to attack democratic neighbors and change borders. Politically, Taiwan is one of Asia's few democratic success stories, and by some measures, the region's freest society. If China were to take Taiwan by force, Taiwan's democracy would be extinguished. Our impact if China expands, lives and democracy are at risk. According to Heritage Foundation 21, Taiwan warrants our backing because it is a vibrant democracy democracy, and we should be concerned with the fate of the 24 million people of Taiwan if they became vassals of China's expanding authoritarian regime. If we do not respond appropriately, China will step up the pressure on Taiwan, and defending Taiwan's right to determine its own future, free of Chinese coercion, is in America's national interest. What we do will be noted closely by friends and allies, as well as adversaries around the world. Thus, we are proud to negate.
All right, is everyone ready for the pros for speaker? Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
perfect. All right, go. So then if everyone's ready, can start. Now, we affirm contention one is sandbag. The current U.S. efforts are dragging down Taiwan like a sandbag. The U.S. has overstretched its commitments, which makes efforts insincere and insufficient. Look at the examples about delays. Gomez 24 tells you that the backlog of the U.S. arms sales to Taiwan grew in June 2024 to $20.5 billion, an increase of almost $840 million from the previous month. Non 24 tells you that recent arm deliveries have been fraught with problems. For example, DoD 24 tells you that 67% of actual weapons and all of these packages being sent over sustained water damage, and 35% contain moldy things. This is really bad because Taiwan must face the reality that no matter how much support is actually promised, with all these delays and problems in the shippings for honestly a long time, the current state of the U.S. cannot deliver quality defense, prefer quality not quantity. But then Lottie tells you that the war in Ukraine has left the U.S. defense stockpile significantly depleted. The current inventories do not even meet undergraded national security strategy that continues to support Ukraine while also retaining stability and ability to actually assist Taiwan. Lockfriggin 24 tells you that DoD cannot supply weapons for a conventional war of moderate size for much longer than a year without drawing down actual munition stocks to dangerously low levels. How then can it hope to actually deter China, which would lead to a high-intensity war? War games demonstrate that the U.S. would deplete munitions within just 8 days of high-intensity conflict, leaving Taiwan there alone without even knowing how to use their own weapons. This strips away success from Taiwan in 2 different ways. First, blocking Taiwan from its true capabilities. Oko tells you that Taiwan does not need more advanced weaponry. Its military needs to learn how to better use what it already has. Selling more to Taiwan only compounds existing absorption problems. It would also be destabilizing to the cross-strait military, which is really bad for regional security. Secondly, the Taiwan seems completely protected by the U.S. with their promised support, false hope, which stops other allies that could do a way better job from actually committing to Taiwan. Harris 22 tells you that U.S. military deployment disincentivizes other powers like allies that could do way better job from actually taking and helping Taiwan. But then our second, this is bad because our impact is that Galbert 22 tells us that the conflict could result in 500,000 deaths on both sides, which would be devastating. But then our second contention is on escalation. We tell you that the current U.S. Taiwan arms sales deals actually threaten cooperation across the board. Lawrence tells you that Beijing protested to Washington and demonstrated it to cancel the overall planned $330 million arms sales to Taiwan, warning that bilateral cooperation would be affected. Beijing said to immediately cancel the deal and cut off military ties with Taiwan to avoid further doing serious damage to China-U.S. relations and peace and stability in Taiwan, indicating that U.S. acts are rather provoking a instability to happen in Taiwan. But then Gillig 10 furthers that in 1982, the U.S. actually pledged to China that it would reduce its arms sales to Taiwan, a promise that was broken ever since. We still have the golden opportunity to demilitarize the conflict because China is starting to show intention that if they were to decrease efforts from Taiwan, they are willing to do so. Historically, a decrease in the U.S. military has actually resulted in reduced tensions with China. In the 1970s, after the U.S. reduced its military involvement in Vietnam, regional arms races, particularly between China and Vietnam, de-escalated instead of intensifying. Similarly, Philippine military base closure in 1992, when the U.S. closed bases in Philippines, overall de-escalating, included Subic Base and Clark air bases, regional tensions with China significantly decreased. China's focus shifted to economic modernizations rather than an immediate military buildup. Furthermore, the U.S.-China relations post-Nixon visits in 1972, the Korean War in 1953, the Iraq 2010, all of these empirics prove that the status quo is not working and that when we took a different measure, like the pro is arguing for, it worked. This is why the app solves, because relations deter war because there's more to lose. Cattler 15 tells you that a key component of China's expected cost of a conflict is the damage that it would cause to U.S.-China relations, because they're both great powers in this world. Them cooperating gives them so much economic benefits and climate cooperation, economic trade, a lot of things. But then right now that's declining because of the fact that the Taiwan is there over provoking and separating China and US's relationship. So on the con side, since relation is bad to begin with, Beijing has less to lose, which is why war is more likely, while on our side, we would actually allow cooperation to occur. For those reasons, please strongly affirm. Thank you. Okay, are you ready for cross?
I am.
Yeah, you can have the first
anyone-
question since
right.
you went first. Yeah.
All right, is anyone not ready for cross? Okay.
Okay.
Time will begin on my first word.
Yep.
Can you specify the circumstances under the 1982 treaty?
Yeah, so that was just like one of the examples, right? But we won't really necessarily go over the circumstances, but it's just what it's saying is that US has been making these promises and saying that, oh, they're not going to do this, they're not going to do this, right? But the context itself is like less important than the fact that United States made this promise before.
Okay, but I just like to highlight on the 1982 on this agreement.
Yeah.
The US would apparently reduce arms sales to Taiwan if the PRC would direct policy peacefully towards Taiwan. So this treaty was broken on both sides, not just the US. It's a problem on both sides, the US and
Mhm.
China. Both sides broke this agreement. So it's not just the US's problem.
Okay.
China also, they cannot trust each other. Both sides
Yeah.
cannot be trusted. You can have the next question.
Okay, yeah, but we're saying that in the status quo, China's taking a different measure, which we can expand in our other speeches. But yeah, that was a good conflict that you brought up there. But my question is just a quick clarification, right? So if you're saying that deterrence is working, then why is China currently saying that, oh, they're gonna invade by 2027 and all of that kind of stuff?
Okay,
And
but China hasn't invaded for a reason.
sorry.
The US is in the US is in the region. The US has a military presence in the region. The US is supplying military aid to Taiwan. The US is backing Taiwan. The US has support for Taiwan. That is why China
Okay.
invaded.
But if deterrence is actually working, why is China continuously telling US that it's clearly provoking them to stop sending these arms to Taiwan and that they rather want a peaceful negotiation and that they're going to invade by 2027 in the status quo that you're trying to maintain? I don't understand, right? So just can you clarify that really?
Just
So how
clarify
does that prove that deterrence
why
is working?
deterrence is working. Okay, clearly China has not invaded Taiwan yet because
But they
the
said they
shown
want to
clearly.
invade because it's provoking them.
Okay, well, China wants to invade regardless of whether we're there provoking them or not. China wants Taiwan
Okay.
to be part of itself.
Okay, so they want to reunify. That's the reason why they want to attack. Is that your point?
Yep, China wants
Okay.
to
All right. Yeah. You can have the next question.
All right. So you stated that we're basically blocking with your sandbag contention, right? You're saying we're blocking Taiwan from achieving its true capabilities, but how long would it take for Taiwan to build up its military potential to reach that of which China's military is at?
Yeah, so if we were to argue that we're gonna build up like all the military, then we would agree, like, oh, it's gonna take a long time. But the thing is, we're not doing that. Our Oakland card specifically tells you that we have so much resources that we can actually like advance military that we can use to fight against China alone with Taiwan. But the problem is that because Taiwan thinks, oh, like US is gonna help us, which in reality they're gonna literally leave the war in 8 days. But because they think that, because of that false hope, they're not learning how to use their military capabilities and the resources they have built for like a long time, right?
Okay,
so
but how long?
Military, then they don't have to build anything new. They just have to use what they have right now and just learn how to use it. And that's not going to be taking a long time. But either way, it's not really our job to like quantify exactly when it's going to happen. But we're saying that would be way better. And on our side, that's not the only thing we're arguing for, right? We're saying hitting two birds with one stone, right? The moment we decrease like US presence, then not only are we allowing Taiwan to be more dependent, but we're also making sure that war doesn't happen in the first place. So that's our main point. But either way, that's if that answered your question, then that would be great. If not, I can clarify. But
all right, everybody ready? Sounds good. Tommy gets on first word. There's a huge contradiction in the AF case, which is firstly, they say Taiwan is fine and they can supposedly have a good military, but then they say in contention too that Beijing rejected a deal from the US that gave Taiwan $300 million. This means that Taiwan is weak since the US is giving it money and the Beijing is scared of it because Taiwan is getting stronger. So which one is it? Is Taiwan fine or is Taiwan weak? So but either way, they're wrong. So their first condition is sandbag, which is very interesting name, but like that doesn't really help it. I have a few responses. Firstly, sandbag is getting better. Taipei Times explains how the U.S. Department of Defense has taken action to make improvements after unserviceable and poorly packaged equipment and munitions were sent to Taiwan under the PDA department on Friday. And then right after that, on October 25th, they sent 3 missiles a month ago and they all worked fine. So sandbag is clearly an isolated incident. I don't really know what they're getting with that. Secondly, sandbag is necessary. Taiwan lacks an ability to defend itself in the status quo. Flow 23 explains how Taiwan's ability to defend against a hypothetical Chinese invasion wouldn't hinge on whether the island can fight off Beijing, but whether it could hold out until U.S. forces arrive, said a political scientist. There's no situation under which Taiwan could defend itself without directly military intervention from the United States. Also, China very much clearly has a military advantage over Taiwan. Like Pocket 23 explains, well, while Taiwan has a military, its ability to defend itself against a potential attack from China remains limited, and the geographical proximity of China and its military prowess poses a significant challenge to Taiwan's defense strategy. Taiwan's self-defense improvements will ultimately be too little too late, so that they need the USA to get out of this. Boo 23 explains how while Taiwan's defense budget is only 2.4% of their GDP, so they're spending not that much money on this. Thirdly, sandbag does not affect the U.S. They talk about Ukraine and how we're going to lose money and we're going to get our ammunition coffins dry, but we can do both. Ukraine and Taiwan need different weapons, making resourcing both sustainable. Cadillac 23 explains how while there are important areas of overlap between the military elites of Taiwan and Ukraine, their main differences made resourcing marginally sustainable. Ukraine's highest priority includes heavy artillery, ammunition, tanks, short-range missiles, and mobile air defense, while Taiwan has much more need for anti-ship missiles and naval mines. This contradicts their card because even in the worst case where we are depleted, we're not going to be depleted in the areas that affect Taiwan. So both Ukraine and Taiwan are going to be functioning fine. They talk about their second condition, which is escalation, but deterrence is actually better for escalation. Military support works as deterrence to prevent a conflict from happening at all. Garamone 23 explains how deterrence across the South China Strait here today is real and strong, and we are doing more than ever to keep that away. Our budget request shows that the department is focused on delivering cutting-edge capabilities for our military right now. While investing in the capabilities, we need to maintain deterrence well into the future. Just as important, the U.S. is working to advance alliances and partnerships in the region, and the U.S. presence is actively keeping China from invading Taiwan. Stavastopolo 24 explains how Xi Jinping told the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen that Washington was trying to goad Beijing into attacking Taiwan. According to people familiar with the matter, he said that the U.S. was trying to trick China into invading Taiwan, but he wouldn't take the bait. Another person said that he had issued similar warnings to its officials. These comments provide a window into Xi's thinking on Taiwan. So as such, the U.S., regardless of how it's effective, to even take them at their best case where sandbag is actually working, which is not, but just having a military presence there is already better because China believes that they're walking into a trap. And it is also setting constructive that deterrence is absolutely necessary just to prevent a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. So as such, sandbag is completely not true. That's not relevant anymore. The U.S. have gotten that, and it's really not going to be affecting anyone in the near future anytime soon. Probably gonna.
Wait, we're gonna take running prep. I'll start when I mute. All right. I used 20 minute 25. Did anybody else get a different time? No. All right. Quick off-time roadmap. I'm just gonna be going on frontline first, and then it's gonna be a refutation if that made it clear. If everyone's ready, Tom will start on my first word. First off, let's clear off the contradiction that our opponents talk about. First off, our first contention is talk about what we what we want to do right now as it in the status quo, and our second contention is what we hope for in the future. They completely misunderstand our two contentions here. They also talk about on our first contention about sandbags that these missiles are improving as of right now, and the U.S. sent missiles. But the thing is that these missile sendings or these weapon sendings are slow. That's what we're trying to say. The U.S. is non-predictable. It's an inconsistent defense partner. Not only that, they tell you that China has an advantage over military power and and Taiwan only spends 2.4% of their GDP on military. However, yet even if that is true, we tell you that our Oklahoma 24 card specifically tells you that Taiwan's military is big enough to stop a Chinese attack against Taiwan. So we tell you even if they do spend 2.5% in GDP for their military, it's still able to back off the military attack. Again, they talk about Ukraine and Taiwan use different weapons. Sure, but the thing is ammunition. Ammunition is the most important thing. Our Oklahoma 24 card states that the US cannot save Taiwan in this specific situation because of these ammunition weapons. Not only that, we give you a specific card saying that. They don't have any specifics here. On our second Taiwan is not weak with the amount of resources, they're just weak with the skills to use those resources. This would not be a problem if the US could sufficiently stay and help Taiwan if a war breaks out. However, we stated that that's not the case. The US would have to leave in the war in just 8 days, leaving Taiwan surrendered with no ability. It is better to allow the other allies that can do a better job and help Taiwan to learn and to use their own weapons, but these are just sub benefits. Our main is that war won't happen in the first place. On our second contention, they just completely drop it. Don't let them get into summary since that would be unfair for us. Our link and impacts clearly extends. All they say is that deterrence is better. However, it's clearly not because there's increased tensions as of right now. Let's go on to rebuttal now. Deterrence may be good, but the problem is that in the status quo, it's no deterrence. It is simple provocation. The current status quo is failing. China said that they want to attack by 2027 as the US deterrence in Taiwan is escalating tensions. However, the strategy depends on maintaining the status quo, but the de-escalation on both sides is necessary for stability. That's why you're voting for the affirmative today. On their C1 China deterrent, China is increasing their military tensions. Right now, the status quo is failing. However, we turn their argument here because China expects its enemies to take on the lead of de-escalation and not them. Brian L21 tells you that China puts on the burden of escalation and de-escalation onto its enemies through future dominance on a conventional level. This war is specific to US over Taiwan. China would withdraw a very limited war theory of victory. This basically tells you that when the US military does back down, China military will do so as well. China is willing to cooperate peaceful if we decrease the military in Taiwan, which they clearly explain as Dimitri and Joe 24 tells you that in November, she had told Biden they are willing to work with Donald Trump's incoming administration. But even further that, Chinese state media said that she had told Biden that China had red lines that the US should not cross for Taiwan. The people of China do not want this reunification in the first place, as Tao 24 tells you. China is a nationalist country. They care so much about what their people think. They're not just going to invade Taiwan because of they just want to. Furthermore, historically, if the US does back down, we can see a de-escalation of the Chinese military as well. We have 12 historical examples. Again, on their impact about semiconductors, it's just completely false. We have these semiconductors plants working in the US as of right now, and it's completely working. And their impact about war, true deterrence is improved by US-China relation, as then it creates more loose for China than they are two great powers. But to cooperate and benefit so much economically and factors by changing the world. That's our Gallagher 23 card. In democracy, we delink this completely because America's alliance in Asia has never been stronger. But even further, the trilateral partnerships in the Indo-Pacific are strong, but must stay unofficial to succeed. That's our Park 24 card, and alliance are improving right now. So the US is obviously heavily invested in democracies in the region. Appeasing China, one, keeps the peace, keeping Taiwan safe, and two, protects the ties with Japan and South Korea, the two biggest democratic strongholds in the region. Their impact about 24 million people will be solved on our side because one, democracy will continue to happen no matter what, and two, since the people of China do not want reunification in the first place, this won't happen. Thus, we affirm. You want to start, Cross?
I got you. Can I have first question?
Yeah, I'll start on your first word.
All right. So you talk about like China not wanting to invade Taiwan.
Yeah,
Why are they sending like 90 ships over then?
because of the US military. I think that's pretty clear. Can I ask a
Okay.
question?
Cool. You can have a question then.
All right, so let's talk about your war impact on your C1. So if okay, so we're trying to say that the true deterrence is being improved by the US-China relations. How are you guys going to solve for this war impact if all you guys do is increase tensions right now in the status quo?
See, we're not going to be increasing tensions. Like nowhere in our case did we say that. What we are proposing is literally we are not proposing anything. We're keeping the status quo how it is, and that's already been shown to be effective. Like I think you said something in your case about deterrence is good, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're saying deterrence is good.
That's you never. I don't think I never said that deterrence is good, but like, can I just ask a quick follow-up?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so if we are keeping the status quo, like you said, and the U.S. military is there, and the Chinese like are increasing tensions, doesn't that risk towards more war than no war?
No, because once again, I've already said in rebuttal how like Xi Jinping thinks the US presence there is a trap. So while there is tension, that tension is never going to unfold into reality simply because of the cautious nature that Xi is taking it. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you talk about like you refute like missile sending, like my example with that, which just like it's slow.
Yeah.
But like if you look like down on the list for my source, like the next shipment is like a week after. So is it really slow? Do we want to cut this shipment time from like a week to like a day?
Can you just tell me the date of that? What year?
Yeah, I got you. No, this was 2024. This was let me see. So the three missiles were October 25th, 2024, and then like 2 days after that, they got two more radar systems.
Sure. Let's say that they did like send these three missiles, but like the main point that you guys are completely missing is that Taiwan already has their resources for their military, and the U.S. is the one holding them back from using them in the first place. And even if you guys do say that these three missiles are gonna help, the main part that you guys completely miss is that these ammunitions for the weapons of the U.S. military in Taiwan is being slow in the first place.
Wait. Missiles don't need ammunition. The missile is the ammunition.
Sure.
Let me read the source to you. Like
Let me just
Ukraine needs heavy artillery or tanks, short range missiles. Taiwan needs anti-ship missiles, which are different missiles, naval mines, which are its own ammunition, long range missiles, which are its own ammunition. So like I don't see where you're getting ammo here. Like the stuff being sent is the ammo.
ammunition there. We'll just call for that card later, and then we'll probably explain it something. But like,
All right.
you have like 5 seconds left for cross anyway.
All right.
Just that card about the difference
All right.
between Taiwan.
All right. Got you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna be taking 1 minute of prep starting there.
Your thing says like I can't. It says page not found.
All right. Well, the text is just there.
All right. I know. I just want to see like the whole thing because like I want to see what
All
it
right.
says.
I'm gonna try to get that to you.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, I have a minute of prep on the clock.
Just before you start, can we just get the card before?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
got
I'm so
you.
sorry, of course.
Here we go. Yeah, that's my bad. It was the wrong link, but here you go.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is anyone not ready for me to begin? All right, time will begin on my first word. Judge, today we urge you to negate resolve the U.S. should substantially decrease military support of Taiwan. We had two contentions: deterring China and protecting democracy. Number one, a substantial decrease of military support of Taiwan sends a clear signal not only to Taiwan, not only to China, but to other nations as well that there is no longer backing support of Taiwan. If the U.S. shows weakness in supporting Taiwan, why would other countries do so too? This results in a U.S.-China war and a Taiwanese invasion, which would cost $10 trillion in the global economy, and 24 million people of Taiwan would become vassals of China's dictatorship. dictatorship, conflict would engulf millions of people around the world. Our second contention was protecting democracy. Taiwan is one of few democratic nations in East Asia and shows that democracy can indeed thrive in the region. Substantially reducing military support gives China the go-ahead to invade and creates this clear pattern in the midst of the Russia-Ukraine war of authoritarian regimes using power and force to change borders, which is against international law. Our opponents say our impact no longer stands, but we still have access to them. Democracy won't stand when this pattern of dictatorships bulldozing their way through other borders is established and cemented in AF world. On my opponent's contention, number one, sandbag. Our opponents conceded in first cross that Taiwan will take a long time to reach China's military level. Moreover, their Okolo card states that Taiwan doesn't know how to use their weapons. So like when the US decreases support, Taiwan will automatically figure it out. I don't think bomber planes or ICBMs come with user manuals. If Taiwan could have figured it out by themselves, they would, but they can't. So that's why the US is there to help. They need the US for support, but when the US substantially decreases its support, China will jump at that opportunity to invade. It won't wait for Taiwan to build up its military so that there's an even playing ground. Thus, we cannot substantially decrease support. Taiwan cannot reach an ideal position in time. Don't buy their impacts on this. Their second contention was escalation. My partner did, in fact, mention this in rebuttal. So now, Judge, the clash between this and our first contention boils down to in which world will conflicts occur? When the US decreases support, showing weakness in backing Taiwan, we are essentially handing China the opportunity to invade on a silver platter. There are few consequences on the ballot. No one's stopping China anymore. For the PRC, it's full steam ahead. They're not going to stop their invasion. Weighing, we went on time frame because we don't have time to wait for Taiwan to build up its military. China won't be waiting for Taiwan to build up its military. We went on probability because we show in AF world China will invade. When the opportunity is presented to them, they will take that opportunity. But with the US in the region in neg world, China isn't as stupid as our opponents seem to think. They won't invade when the US is right there up in their noses. They haven't because of this reason. We went on magnitude and scope because conflict would shatter our world. The global economy would collapse. Not only would the 24 million Taiwanese become vassals of Chinese dictatorship, but millions more around the world would be engulfed into this conflict. We have clear access to all of these impacts. Judge, our opponents in this round have no solvency. Voting AF kills the economy, destroys millions of lives, and conflict will happen in AF world. We don't have time to sit around and send Taiwan back to square one. They say when the US backs down, China will too, but make that make sense. If the opportunity is presented to China to invade, they will take this opportunity. For the future of the world and democracy, vote neg.
Megan, you're taking prep.
I think we can take like 30 seconds.
All right, we'll take 30 seconds of prep starting.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're ready to go now. Can everyone hear me okay, just to make sure? Perfect. All right. Okay, time. We'll start 3 minutes, okay? Sorry. Judge, please look at this logically. In the cons world, China is wanting to attack by 2027. So then we can confidently argue that this is due to the status quo military presence, given that China literally asked US to not cross the red line with Taiwan in order to keep diplomatic measures. China is willing to be peaceful only if US backs down. We mentioned so many cards in our case where we specifically tell you that China specifically has been urging the US to stop sending these military packages and all of these defense. Clearly it's because provoking them. Realize that this is happening in the status quo with the presence of the military that Khan is saying is a solution and we should maintain the status quo as a deterrent is clearly not working. So then how can they tell you that, oh, all these war impacts that they talk about and all of that is going to be prevented because they have no solvency to the war while we do? We keep telling you that Taiwan does not have to build up their military. AUKUS specifically tells you that Taiwan has enough capabilities like resources wise, but they just don't know how to use it. It's not going to take that long. All of our opponents' responses are based on the fact that they have to build up everything, which is going to take a long time, but they completely disregard this response that it's already built. But even so, we collapsed on our second contention because deterrence being good was their only response, which does not work because that doesn't mean it works for everywhere, right? Like infants literally learn how to know different contexts for different things, like in their pre-operational stages. I guess our opponents passed that stage. US deterrence is not working and that's clear. But then why are we doing what we are doing if China themselves themselves don't want to reunify because that's their like main incentive that they are arguing for. But we literally said that China is a nationalist country. Their citizens themselves don't want reunification. Extend our Tao 24 card. This is from 2024. No responses here. On their side, U.S.-China relations are failing, as Gingberg 24/3 tells you that recent times have the U.S.-Chinese climate actions and other multilateral actions barely talking to each other. This is because of the tension in Taiwan. This is bad because Carter 2015 tells you in case that the true deterrence is improved when the U.S.-China relations is, because then there's more to lose, because then they're economically, trade-wise, there's so many aspects that China can't risk that wise. But then if the relationship is already bad in the status quo, in the cons world, then China has less to lose when they actually go into war, which is why voting for pro rather deters war. But then on the Ukraine and Taiwan clash, it states that Ukraine literally also needs like ammunition. We tell you that Taiwan also needs them. This is contradiction. We win on probability because historically when the US decreased their military, we saw China also de-escalating. This is key. We have like 12 historical examples. We have listed a few of them already, like the 1970s Vietnam War withdrawal, post-Cold War US drawdown in Eastern Europe in 1990s. Furthermore, right, they don't talk about any of this. We tell you that if the status quo is not working, and that's their historical example that hasn't worked for decades, and it's like literally wanting to attack because they're being provoked, then it's better to do something that actually worked in the past, which was de-escalating and rather hoping for a peaceful resolution. Extending refutation, all they say here is that the US back out like China attacks, sure, but there's no warrant here. However, we do. As our Baron at all 21 cards that China waits up until the opponents actually de-escalate, and that China is willing to actually cooperate, and the China people does not want to reunify. These are all important. Their impact on war is not going to be solved in their side as the turn fails. That is why we win, and democracy happens anyways, which we talk about piecing to China and all of these reasons, and that is why you strongly vote for the pro side. Thank you.
All right. Is anyone not ready for Grand Cross? All right. My opponents, do you guys want to unmute your microphones?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
All right. Timer will begin on my first word. If everyone's ready. All right.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to go back to what you're saying about how China will be peaceful if the US backs down. But given that what you mentioned in case about that card on the 1982, like the agreement, whatever, China broke that agreement about being peaceful. So what makes you think that China will be peaceful when the US backs down?
Yeah, first of all, because that 1982 card, like you guys didn't even bring this up, like, so it's like honestly drop after case, right? But even so, to answer that, it said specifically that US broke the promise. Like you don't have any quantifiable way of saying like who broke it first, but then our card specifically says that US broke it, right? It doesn't say China broke it first. It says US broke it, and then China is like upset. So then generally that's why we say we can outweigh with that card. But even so, even if we drop all of that, we argue that historically for the past like 12 examples that we list that you guys completely drop, China specifically de-escalated right after like US de-escalated, right? We even state this in case and explain like the Bay areas within the South China Sea and those kind of things that was completely dropped. And so that's why empirically we see that it's going to be de-escalating. And specifically because China is telling them directly. Yeah, but either way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So Jaden, do you have a question?
Can I ask?
Sorry?
You can ask one.
Okay, so when you talk about all these like again, like status quo deterrence is working, like how do you guys just keep saying, oh, deterrence is working bluntly when it can work in some contexts, but like in this case it's not working? So why are you guys keep saying that it's working, right? Like I don't really understand how that applies to the
so
situation.
first of all, in this quote, it is working. China has not invaded yet. And then we're also going to say in the in the AF world, when the US pulls out, you're essentially handing this opportunity to China. You're like giving it them like on a silver platter. You're like, go ahead, invade. Like the US is basically showing weakness and backing Taiwan. You're essentially handing them this opportunity. And China isn't stupid. When it's handed an opportunity, it will take that opportunity.
Okay, but China clearly says like their citizens don't want reunification, right? They don't have incentives, and we proved that like throughout the whole.
But China's government, President Xi wants reunification.
We say that that's not because of the reunification aspect. It's because of the fact that US is provoking them. Because when China said like, oh, we're gonna attack by 2027, they keep saying that US arms sales, it's clearly provoking them. And while saying these kind of aggressive things, China have always said, like, can US stop, please stop, please stop. So that clearly proves that the 2027 is highly impacted by US, given that the reunification and all of that is not their incentive anymore, if that makes sense.
All right, cool. That's crossed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be taking the remainder of our prep time.
By the way, Jerry, that's prep.
All right, sounds good. All right, Tommy gets my first word. Just confirming, are my judges ready? Are my opponents ready? And is my partner ready? All right, last speech, let's go home. Okay, Tommy is my first word. Off-time roadmap, just gonna be clash analysis, crystallization, all that good stuff. So this entire debate really comes down to like which side protects Taiwan the most and if escalation will actually happen on either side. AF tries to argue that China is trying to react and not to act. Supposedly there was some agreement that the US broke China also broke it too. I don't know what they were trying to get in with, try to get there with. The fact of the matter is that China has been making moves since they broke that agreement, and they are not planning on stopping. Reina explains how, China broke that agreement first and has been making moves ever since. The fact of the matter is that escalation is probably going to happen even more on side AF simply because of a few reasons. We give you multiple sources, in fact, that firstly, military presence is a deterrent. Observer Research Foundation 23 supports this. We set that in case. Garmin 23 says that deterrence is actively working, keeping China out. We said that in rebuttal. Paulo 24 says that a presence is keeping Xi's skeptical, meaning that invasion isn't happening yet. We said that in rebuttal. But all of this is removed on AF side because you don't get the presence of a U.S. military keeping China skeptical. We established that the U.S. support in Taiwan is both effective, it's been working fine. Taipei Times explains how right after that incident where the U.S. messed up, this U.S. stepped up to the plate and gave them a perfectly fine shipment. As such, the clash really only comes down to which side has the most recent cards. Ours is literally from a month ago, so I think we win on that. But secondly, U.S. support is also necessary. Low 23 explains how the Taiwan needs the U.S. and Kolipaka 23 explains how Taiwan's military is literally nothing compared to China's. Boo 23 explains how because of this, Taiwan is spending little to nothing on military upgrades. And just think about it logically. Why would the US give aid to a country who doesn't need it? Why would we waste that type of money? Clearly, there is a problem in Taiwan, and the problem with Taiwan is that Taiwan cannot defend itself. Thus, the only option left is to keep our existing military defenses there and not let Taiwan get taken over. Thank you very much.
Okay. We used a minute 25 in rebuttal and 18 seconds during my partner's summary. So I'll just take whatever the remaining that is. I'll start when I mute. Okay, I don't think I need more prep. All right, quick off-time roadmap before I start. It's gonna be a clarification of the debate of the clash in the very beginning, and then it's gonna be onto our side of the flow, their side of the flow, and then weighing at the very end, if that made it clear for everybody. Okay, then. I'm assuming everyone's ready. Then time will start on my first word. This debate revolves around the status quo. Let's clarify the decision. The US military in Taiwan is increasing tensions right now. The only response they give here is that China thinks that it's a trick. Then why is China increasing their military? But even further, China themselves say that they are increasing because of the US military in the first place, and they themselves say that they will back off if the US backs off. It's super clear that the deterrence is failing, and the only way to solve it is voting for the AF side for a few reasons. One, China said themselves that they will back off after the US does it first. Two, China has intent of being peaceful with the US cooperation. Three, there's absolutely no economic incentive for China to invade in the first place. And four, the people of China do not want reunification, and China is a nationalist country. That's why they're going to listen to the people. That's why you're going to vote for the F side. Onto our side, on our first contention, don't let them bring up new arguments here. But even further, they missed the most important card, which is Oklo 24, which literally states that Taiwan has enough military themselves to protect against China. But even further, on our second contention, it's dropped in rebuttal, and they only say that deterrence is better. You can only drop the responses, but even further, we already established that this is completely false for the few reasons why China will not invade in the first place. Onto their side, there's so many things that is dropped and unresponded by opponents. Let's dive deeper here. On their first contention, the only defense they provide is that China attacks if the US backs off. But we already provided you why this is false for multiple reasons with evidence and warrants. But even further, their war impact and semiconductor impact fails as deterrence doesn't work. China's military buildup is a response to US presidents, that which they completely ignore. On their second contention, democracy persists because the US is committed to regional democracies, realize that appeasing China will, one, keep the peace in Taiwan safe, and two, protect ties with Japan and Korea. This completely dropped. Onto weighing, we are weighing on probability because our solvency has worked for the past 12 occasions when the US de-escalated directly led to China de-escalating. This is completely works with the fact that China expects their opponents to de-escalate first, while on their side, their solvency is to maintain the military, which has been implemented in the status quo, where we see China will invade by 2027. They have no evidence that the 1982 agreement was broken by China first. You can outweigh on magnitude because on our side, a full-scale war is prevented. On their side, with a risk of more war, their side is completely unreliable. Good round, guys. Thank you, judges, for judging.
Good debate.
Thank you so much. That was a great round, you guys.
Good job. Thank you, judges.